Africa Today. Thank you so much for joining us and always being part of us. This is Africa Today. My name is Nahabe Kajura, but first are the headlines. Taiba warns international community against political interface. President Yoweri Museveni in Algeria to strengthen ties. The United Nations delegation in the DRC to assess situation in North Kivu province. In sports news today, Vipers turn to ASA video to turn the tide at Chitende. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. To start with one of our top stories. Now, the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Thomas Taiwo, has warned the international community against meddling in the internal affairs of sovereign states, saying each country is entitled to manage its own affairs. Now, Taiwo made the remarks on the sidelines of the 146th Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union.
Speaking during the 146th Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union in Manama, Bahrain, Deputy Speaker of Parliament Thomas Taiwo called on the international community to stop meddling in the internal affairs of sovereign states, saying each country is entitled to manage its own affairs. Taiwo said political tolerance shouldn't interfere with the values and norms of other sovereign states, and noted that it's possible to cooperate and coexist without unwarranted interference. The Deputy Speaker added that Uganda is open to working with non-intrusive states around the world and committed on behalf of Uganda's parliament that the institution would make laws that promote tolerance, coexistence and mitigation of climate change. This year's assembly has been attended by over 110 parliaments across the globe, Uganda inclusive, under the theme promoting peaceful coexistence and inclusive societies, fighting intolerance.
Thank you so much, your reporter Ahumuza. Moving on in our top stories, His Excellency Yoweri Museveni flew to Algeria for a 3-day state visit on the invitation of his Algerian counterpart, Abdelmadjid Tebboune. We have more on this report. In a statement by State House, during the visit, Museveni and his host will witness the signing of a number of memorandum of understanding between various sectors from the two countries. The heads of state will also attend the first ever business forum between Algeria and Uganda in Algiers. Last year, President received a special envoy from Algeria, Lamamra, who is also the North African country's Minister for Foreign Affairs at the country home in Rachtura. During the meeting, President lobbied the Algerians to invest in Uganda, especially in agriculture value addition, but also asked the North African country to start importing milk from Uganda. Currently, trade between Uganda and Algeria is minimal, with the East African country export to Algeria products, including cocoa, coffee, and tea. On the other hand, Algeria's imports to Uganda are also minimal. Uganda opened its first ever mission in Algeria in Alger, but even after that, trade between the two countries has not been at its best majorly because of the limited infrastructure connectivity. Africa Today takes a quick break. We shall come back with the international news. Welcome back for the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the Bright. In international news, United Nations officials arrived in the Democratic Republic of Congo on Friday to assess the security and humanitarian situation in the east of the country.
Fighting in the North Kivu province has intensified recently, with the M23 rebels threatening to cut off all road links to Goma, a city of more than 1 million inhabitants situated on the border with Rwanda. Speaking on arrival, the French ambassador to the UN reaffirmed the support of the international community with the DRC. Nicolas Derville said that the main message they had gone to convey is that the United Nations, the international community, stands by the Democratic Republic of Congo in its ordeal because what is happening in the east of the country is not acceptable. Several regional initiatives intended to defuse the conflict have so far failed to stop the fighting. UN experts, the United States and several other Western states have concluded that Rwanda supports the group, although Kigali has so far denied that. The UN peacekeeping mission in the DRC, known as MONUSCO, is one of the largest and most expensive UN missions in the world, with more than 16,000 uninformed personnel. Residents accuse it of failing to deal with the dozens of armed groups operating in eastern DRC, including M23 rebels.
Moving on, in international news, a monument honoring Harriet Tubman was unveiled in a spot where Christopher statue once stood. Now big names from Newmark gathered to celebrate Tubman's fearless contributions to American history.
Queen Latifah, artist Nina Cook-John, Audible founder Don Katz, and others cut the ribbon to debut a new monument to abolitionist Harriet Tubman. Queen Latifah narrator Shadow of a Face expressed that they want people to know, to feel, to understand what was at stake and how incredibly brave Harriet Tubman was. She added they are committed to taking storytelling and Black storytelling, in particular African American storytelling, the Black experience, storytelling to the next level and make a real impact in their communities and around the world. Until recently, the park was named Washington Park after George Washington and featured a statue of Christopher Columbus, which was taken down in 2020. Nina Cook-John, architect Shadow of a Face, said that the commission has meant a lot to her as an artist, as an architect, as a woman, and as a mother of Black girls. The monument honors a woman who risked everything to free enslaved people, all while a bounty was on her head. Michelle Jones-Galvin, descendant of Harriet Tubman, say that Tubman was a woman of history whom many call an American hero and the greatest conductor of the Underground Railroad. Several stops in New Jersey were part of the Underground Railroad, through which Tubman and others helped people escape lives of slavery.
Away from that, the ruling junta in Mali announced on Friday that it would postpone a constitutional referendum scheduled for March 19th, while assuring that it would respect its commitments to return civilians to the helm of the country in 2024.
The junta in Mali justifies this postponement by the installations of the representations of the election management body in all regions of the country and by the desire to popularize the draft new constitution. The statement added that the new date for the referendum would be set after the consultation with the Independent Election Management Authority and all the sectors in the election process. This constitution is a key element of the vast reform project invoked by the military to justify continuing to rule this country until 2024, which is facing the spread of jihadism and a deep multifaceted crisis. The version of the constitution presented as final, handed to the head of the junta, Colonel Assimi Goita, on February 27, affirms the attachment to the republican form and secularity of the state. Mali has been plagued since 2012 by the spread of jihadism and violence of all kinds. The junta pushed out French soldiers in 2022 amid great acrimony and has turned militarily and politically to Russia.
Moving on, in international news, Zimbabweans have raised concern and want the remains of Cecil John Rhodes removed from the sacred hill Matobo National Park outside Maluwayo in Zimbabwe, where they go to consult their ancestors.
Located atop a steep hill immersed in lush vegetation, a short climb is necessary to reach the grave, which is surrounded by imposing rocks rounded by erosion. The stones are covered in light green aniseed and orange lichens that brighten at the slightest touch of the sun. It's also where the notorious British colonizer Cecil John Rhodes chose to be his final resting place. Often described as a philanthropist, Rhodes dreamt of a British African home, Cape Town in Cairo, with the blessings of Queen Victoria. The white supremacist died more than 120 years ago in South Africa, aged 48, after carving out swaths of territory for the British Empire. Part of the land grab, later named Rhodesia, in his honor included modern Zambia and Zimbabwe. Part of the younger generation wants his remains removed to rid the country of the last vestiges of colonialism. In neighboring South Africa, students at the University of Cape Town launched a Rhodes Must Fall protest in 2015, initially to pull down Rhodes' statue at the campus.
Africa Today takes a quick break. We shall come back with business, health, and sports. Welcome back from the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the right to know. Now, talking matters business. Every year, the cost of studying at a South African university is becoming unbearable for students. Now, according to data from Financial Services Group, Old Mutual University students in South Africa will fork out an average of $3,000 in 2023.
In the past week, students from the University of Witwatersrand shut down the campus in protest over the exclusion of students who cannot afford to register for the new academic year and pay off debt. One of the student leaders demanded that the university does not leave academically deserving students stranded. Lunjil Magagula, Wits University Student Forum interim chairperson, said that financial exclusion is not a valid reason to bar students from starting the new academic year. Last week, students at Wits University were seen sleeping in public places due to delays in securing financial aid for accommodation. Onkokame Sipamor, a final year Bachelor's of Law student, expresses concern that financial aid for accommodation continues to be a struggle every year. 7 years ago, fees must fall protests erupted on campuses throughout South Africa. Students were calling for free and quality tertiary education. Lunjil said that this was the perfect time to put pressure on the government to provide free education. At this point, students and management of Wits University are still locked in negotiations. On the ground, students are hoping that a mutual solution will come sooner rather than later.
In a health news today, Rwanda has started to test a new device that treats precancerous lesions with heat and can be used in countries with limited access to advanced medical equipment or facilities. Now, the device works by applying heat to the cervix, causing abnormal cells to die.
Located atop a steep hill immersed in lush vegetation, a short climb is necessary to reach the grave, which is surrounded by imposing rocks rounded by erosion. The stones are covered in light green aniseed and orange lichens that brighten at the slightest touch of the sun. It's also where the notorious British colonizer Cecil John Rhodes chose to be his final resting place. Often described as a philanthropist, Rhodes dreamt of a British African home, Cape Town in Cairo, with the blessings of Queen Victoria. The white supremacist died more than 120 years ago in South Africa, aged 48, after carving out swaths of territory for the British Empire. Part of the land grab, later named Rhodesia, in his honor included modern Zambia and Zimbabwe. Part of the younger generation wants his remains removed to rid the country of the last vestiges of colonialism. In neighboring South Africa, students at the University of Cape Town launched a Rhodes Must Fall protest in 2015, initially to pull down Rhodes' statue at the campus. Cervical cancer is the most common cancer among women in Rwanda, affecting 42 out of every 100,000 individuals, compared to such over 13 out of every 100,000 worldwide, according to Rwanda's National Institution of Statistics. According to the World Health Organization, 940 women died of uterine cancer in 2019 in the Great Lakes country of just over 13 million people. Many women dread getting screened due to the fear and stigma surrounding the disease. Cervical cancer is the most common cancer among women with HIV, according to UNAIDS. And those who are diagnosed often think that treatment is out of reach unless they live in a big city. The portable thermocoagulator, suitable for low and middle-income countries, is a probe-like device that uses a battery and thus can be deployed in remote areas where access to electricity is intermittent. According to Christine, a nurse at the Remera Health Center in Kigali, this technology, according to the nurse, is a much cheaper and less energy-consuming alternative to cryotherapy, which aims to destroy the lesion by freezing and is also easy to use, requiring minimal training for health workers.
In a sports news today, Uganda Premier League defending champions Viper Sports Club have announced the signing of Alex Isabidye as the team's new head coach.
The news of the unveiling of the tactician previously at Bull FC was announced on a chilly Sunday afternoon by the Chitende-based club. The development comes barely a week after Brazilian tactician Beto Baenchi Pelista was shown the exit after dismissal display, especially in the CAF Champions League, where Vipers are yet to earn a point in the 3 group stage games so far played. The club said Isabidye is the direct replacement of the Brazilian who failed to live up to the billing. Isabidye said of the move to the UPL defending champions that he was incredibly proud and excited to represent Viper Sports Club and looks forward to meeting and working with the exciting group of players. Isabidye has previously won the league with the tax collectors URA AFC, but also won the Uganda Cup with Victoria University and Bull. He also managed other sides, including Chetume FC, Sowana FC, Busoga United and Somali outfit, Hosidi FC.
It is at this particular time that I thank you for being with us and always joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We should keep updating you. It is TV Africa, the right to know.